Praise be Jesus and Mary. Today we began reading the story of Abraham, starting with his call. At this point, he isn't called Abraham, but Abram, his original name. Later, God changed his name to Abraham to signify his role in salvation history. Already in this first installment of the story, we see he has exemplary faith. Though he was not a young man at the time, he followed God's call to go to a distant land in which he would be a foreigner. Before the passage we heard, the book of Genesis gives some background on Abram's family. Abram was born in Ur, a city near the Euphrates in western Mesopotamia. If these events took place around the beginning of the second millennium BC, as many scholars think, the city of Ur was politically dominant over the surrounding area. Other scholars put the events a couple of centuries later, during a period of increasing dominance of Mesopotamia by Amorites. Abram's father Terah had two other sons, Nahor and Haran. Haran had a son, Lot, and two daughters. Nahor married one of the daughters named Milcah. This was a family in which people married close relations. In fact, Sarai, later known as Sarah, was Abraham's half-sister, the daughter of his father but not his mother. Milcah would become the grandmother of Rebekah, who married Abraham's son Isaac. All this was normal at the time. Archaeological evidence confirms what St. Augustine concluded from Scripture. He says, Abraham lived at that period in human history when, though marriage had become unlawful between children of the same parents, or that is, of the same father and mother, no law or authority interfered with the custom of marriage between the children of brothers, or any less degree of consanguinity. Getting back to the period narrated in today's reading, Abram's brother Haran died in Ur. After this, their father Terah decided to leave, taking with him Abram, Lot, and Sarai. It seems that Lot, after the death of his father, became attached to Abram, who was something like a father to him. They were headed for Canaan, this group, but they stopped in Haran, which is not only a person but also a city, and settled there. This Haran was also on the Euphrates. It was a caravan stop 550 miles northwest of Ur, and this was about halfway to Canaan. Although Canaan was due west from Ur, there was a desert between them, so the practical route, especially for a family that had herds, was to follow the river northwest and then make its way south. Ur in southern Mesopotamia and Haran in the north were both centers of worship for the moon god Sin, and it may not be a coincidence that the names Terah, Sarai, and Milcah were all connected with this religion. This could explain why they stopped there. They felt at home. There, in that city, Terah, Abram's father, died. Then God called Abram to complete the journey Terah had begun. The elderly can take comfort from the fact that for Abraham, life began at 75. Only what he did after that age was considered worth writing down. It was then that he began to be a model of faith, of whom the letter to the Hebrews says, "By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going." It's not clear what relationship Abram had with God before this. Was this the first time that he heard God and began to believe, or had his relationship been slowly growing over the years? Monotheism was rare or non-existent at this time, but somehow Abram had come to know God and had developed the faith to obey this call. In God's general promise of blessing that we heard in the first reading, we can discern three specific promises: great nationhood, a great name, and blessing to all peoples. As Abraham's story proceeds, each of these promises becomes more specific and is upgraded to a covenant oath. This progress in the clarity and the solemnity of the promises comes gradually as Abram shows himself faithful to God. And as this progress comes, we will see what God meant by a great name. Not just fame, as we might guess from the modern meaning of the expression, but God will say, "Kings will come to you." In fact, great name is an expression associated with kingship in the ancient Near East. Already in today's reading, we can see some development in Abram's relationship with God. At the beginning of the passage, God told Abram, "Go forth to a land that I will show you." But he didn't specify what land this was or how long the journey would be. Abram nevertheless obeyed, showing his trust in God. After God had led Abram to Canaan, he appeared to him and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." Now it is a specific land, a land through which Abram passes from north to south, from Shechem to the hill country west of Bethel, and then finally down to Negeb in the south. He has seen this land with his own eyes, and he has also seen God with his own eyes. Before, he only heard the voice of God. Now his relationship is deepened and God appears to him. And in response to this, Abram's worship develops as well. Now he begins to make the land into which he has been called a holy land by building altars and worshiping God in various places, or in the various places where he pitches his tent. He's a nomad traveling with flocks, following pasture, following the places where the flocks can find enough to eat. And so it was that vision of God that led to this change, to beginning to build altars. And so we see that by serving God himself, Abram lays a foundation for all his descendants, especially his spiritual descendants, those who follow his example of faith in God. Praised be Jesus and Mary.